everybody, my name is Jo and I love to read. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be part 2 in this fun video project slash challenge slash just video series that I'm going to be doing, and that is picking the earliest added book on my TBR, my wishlist online, so not my physical TBR. I did a bunch of videos about that a couple years ago. Go check them out if you want, about getting a zero TBR. But now I'm wanting to try and read some of the earliest books I ever put on my virtual TBR list. So it's the one where I'm watching BookTube or I'm scrolling Bookstagram and I see a book that looks interesting that I'm not going to buy straight away but I want to remember, so I add it. I'm going to pop across to my StoryGraph account and we're going to see together what the book is. Now I have a bit of a sneaking suspicion about what it is because my memory's pretty good. And then purchase the book. I'm not going to purchase it today because I don't have enough money, but I can't wait because I've just finished my last pick. I'll link that one down below. But I purchased the book and I open it with you guys and I start reading it and decide, was it actually worth it to keep it on my TBR or my wish list for this long? I'm going to go into my to read pile on the StoryGraph and I'm going to sort by earliest added, and drumroll, it is what I thought it is, The Danish Girl by David Ebershoff. People may know this a bit more as the movie that has, Jesus, what's his name? Eddie Redmayne, of course. Oh my god. It's the movie starring Eddie Redmayne. I'm really curious to see what the book is going to be like. As soon as I watched the movie, I believe I watched it with my sister years and years and years ago, I added it to my TBR shelf. Oh my goodness, I shelved this one in 2016. So how many years is that then? It's like 4 plus 3. 7 years! Oh my goodness, that I've been waiting to read this book. I still want to read it. I'm going to purchase this one next, and let's just have a little bit of a look on Instagram at maybe some of the different editions and try to decide which one I want to get. But ultimately it might just be what's available. Hey guys! The book arrived! I was actually able to find someone in Australia, South Australia to be specific, who had a copy, so I'm ready to open it. But first I want to say though, when I was doing more research into this after I filmed my original clip, I learnt that this book is actually a fictionalized version of a real person. So Lili is thought to be the first person to have a documented sex change, and this book is a fictionalized version of her life. And the movie, who Eddie Redmayne actually says that he regrets portraying it because they picked trans actors for a lot of the side characters but not for the main character. They could have actually had a trans character play a trans character and they didn't. So Eddie's learnt and grown, decided that he does regret what he did, even though it's a wonderful film, but we also need to talk about these things. I've been trying to source a copy of the, they call it a memoir. It's taken from actual proper documents like her diary and other things. I can't think of it off the top of my head. The book itself is edited by someone who's put it together. I don't know how heavily edited. I don't know whether you're literally just reading Lili's diary or whether the person that's edited it has actually written out the story and then all the account and has like excerpts. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm trying to source that because I've decided that I want to read them alongside each other. I really want to read the fictionalized version because one of the big parts that, aside from learning about what it's like to be a trans person and in this atmosphere and time, and the first person who was documented to have a sex change operation, the other big thing for me as well is that it's supposed to be a good look into a marriage and what it really means to love someone for a person and not for their gender or who they look like. I am not qualified to discuss this at all. I'm not an own voices person, but I want to read them alongside each other and I want to compare. I want to see which parts are fictionalized and which parts are true. Let's open this package now and do that fun bit now that I've talked about that, which is very important to talk about. In the edition that I wanted. I really love this one the most. And I found a copy that was secondhand for a steal, and that I could see based on the picture that they'd taken that it was actually this cover, not like a stock image. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. And it does say on the back, loosely inspired by a true story. This is a tender portrait of marriage. oh, this tender portrait of marriage asks, what do you do when the person you love has to change? So I like that they write loosely inspired by a true story. I'm finally reading it right now. It's taken me a really long time to get back to this project, and I'm really sorry to anybody that were eagerly awaiting the next installment, but this was something that I felt that I wanted to do it justice, as much justice as I can give it, and that included reading both books. So I wanted to wait until the right time where I felt like I had the space to actually sort of sit and read them properly, which turns out to be now. I am up to the start of the second chapter. I have read through the foreword and the introduction and the first chapter. So I'm very, very much at the beginning. Most of the stuff that I've read has been the foreword and the introduction. Two separate people did it. I actually found it really interesting because they present two different, to me, opposing-ish views on surgeries. That was really interesting, and I'm not quite sure whether this is supposed to be viewed or read in an inspirational light or a cautionary light. I'm just a little bit confused because the foreword, which was about 3 to 6 pages, was written by a trans person, and they were saying that Lili's memoir was really inspirational and that it's good for lots of different people to read it, whether you're trans, whether you're a medical professional, or whether you're someone just trying to understand. And then the introduction was written by someone else who was a medical professional, and they talked a lot more on medical stuff, like what it means to be an intersex person or what we know so far about that. But at the end it did really confuse me because they talked about how they recommend, at the time of the book being published, which their introduction was written in 2015, they advise against people doing surgeries. This is gonna be a spoiler for Lili's life and for the surgeries that she had. I'll put timestamps when I stop talking about it. They spoiled it in the introduction. She had a number of different surgeries and they were all successful up to the part where they, inferring from what they've written, the final surgery that she wanted performed was to create a vagina and reproductive organs so that she could be a woman completely, that was in the words of the introduction, because she'd been proposed to by a man, and that she wanted to be a wife in every way that she imagined it, and wanted to also become a mother. And that was the surgery that she then lost her life after. So this introduction, I wasn't sure whether they were saying no surgeries altogether or just the ones that were trying to allow reproduction. I'm not entirely sure. To me, it was very interesting to have that introduction at the start. There are dangers with surgery, and you would want people to really think about it and go through all the psychological stuff and everything beforehand, but it was just really interesting to me that they were basically just like, we don't recommend that you do it. We recommend that you seek psychological help because then you may be able to live your life happily without needing surgeries, and maybe if that psychological care was available to Lili back then, she wouldn't have felt the need to have all these surgeries that then ended her life. I can't comment on any of that because that's not my lived experience, but I just found it fascinating because I would have thought that any introductions or forwards or commentary in the book on Lili's life was totally going to be pro surgeries. Hey guys, I am back. I am reading more of the book, obviously. That's why I'm back. I have a few more thoughts. We are still at the beginning-ish of everything, but Lili has just, or really it's Andreas at this stage still, he's just done his first appointments in Paris. That's been really interesting because it was a little bit slow. I mean, it's still a really quick read, like it's quite a short book, but it was feeling a little bit slow on the journey to Paris because we were on the train, and so there was a bit of reminiscing about himself as a painter, and that went into a little bit of detail, still in like a page or two, but it just slowed it down. And then there was another passenger that we met, that a bit of introspection stuff, and that's why she was included, but it was just to slow down the narrative a little bit, so that wasn't very interesting. Obviously I know that it's not a narrative, it is someone's memoir, so I always feel bad critiquing that kind of stuff. I have done a little bit of Googling though, because what I was reading, the way that Lili was explaining what it felt like for her when she was Andreas and was feeling Lili coming in, it sounded a little bit to me like multiple personalities potentially. Now, I know not a lot about mental health and multiple personality disorders. I've never read anything from someone's perspective. It's just that Lili talked about once Lili was awakened, she was then becoming the more dominant person and was overriding Andreas, and that Andreas is going to die. Andreas was having this conversation with his friend, who happens to be the person that's edited the book, Niels, and Andreas allegedly, supposedly said, and I'll get into that while I'm using that terminology very soon, the option for Andreas is that they are going to no longer exist. They're either going to die by suicide if they cannot make the conversion across to Lili, or Lili is going to become alive and Andreas is no longer. This is allegedly from Andreas' words. "For believe me, the man you are talking to is condemned to death. And now the question is whether that being there," and he pointed to the portrait, a portrait of Lili, "can be summoned into existence and taken up the battle of life." So I was Googling this on Reddit to see what our modern day thoughts and opinions are. I wasn't just Googling it on Reddit, but that's been the best thing that's come up. And it's got lots of different opinions from people who are transgender, allegedly online. They're saying some people are disputing whether the memoir is actually written by Andreas or whether it has been edited by his friend Niels, and how heavily has it been edited. A lot of people say that Andreas wouldn't have had the words to necessarily explain what was going on at the time, and that might have been the best way that he could find to explain what it felt like. But then I also saw a comment from someone else on a different Reddit post that they really recommended this memoir as a good book about a transgender person's experience. And so I don't really like the idea of dismissing the book and dismissing how Andreas described things just because they don't agree with the terminology that he used, that she used. I did a bit more of a Google trying to see, do people believe that the memoir is not real or heavily edited? And aside from that Reddit post, I couldn't actually see anything else from people saying that. So for me, it's one of these things that you'll never really know. Like, we'll never really know if Lili would have used different terminology had she had access to it. It's really difficult, but it was really fascinating. I love this about nonfiction. I just love that it opens up more avenues of thoughts and research and understanding. And I read nonfiction slowly because often I will be Googling stuff as I'm reading it. That just makes me really curious. I don't know if I've talked about this actually, but the actual real life person's name is Ina Wagner. I might be saying it a little bit wrong. In the memoir, he had changed the name. I'm glad to be reading this. I'm a bit on the fence about whether I want to still read The Danish Girl or not. I sort of do, especially because it's been on my TBR for a long time. I still like the exploration into marriage and love, but I don't know, I'll see how I feel at the end of this, because I'm really happy that I'm actually reading the non-fiction first, the true story, before actually then going and reading the fictionalized version of it.
Hey everybody, sadly I'm going to present a sad end to this vlog. I've actually decided to DNF Lili's memoir. It was easy to read, but whenever I would go to think about reading it, I would just really not want to, and it felt like reading was boring and reading was not something that I wanted to do. That is a clear sign to me that I needed to DNF the book. There's nothing that I could necessarily say was wrong with it. I hate giving up on memoirs because it feels like I'm insulting the person. But anyways, not every book is for every person. I've also decided to not continue on and read The Danish Girl, the novelization, which is the book that's been on my TBR the longest. I had a lot of extra free time this weekend that I don't normally get, and I still couldn't bring it within myself to pick it up and read it. It just felt boring to me. Where I left the memoir is, so Lili had been to her initials doctor's appointments in France, in Paris, before she was proceeding on to the other country to do surgeries. She had begun to recount when Lili first emerged. She was explaining her experience with the whole thing, that Lili ended up becoming a person only after her wife got her to model for her, and then how they took Lili out to a ball at one stage just to prove a point to another person, and then from there things just kept going. I stopped right there. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. The writing was easy to get into, easy to just flow through. Whenever I feel like reading it, it felt boring to me. So I'm gonna stop here. The question that I'm asking at the end of every video, was it worth it to keep this book on my TBR? I'm gonna say yes, but for a different reason. So the reason that I'm glad that it stayed on my TBR is it's actually given me a chance to explore the topic and understand who actually was the real life version of the movie that came out. Because if I had just watched the movie and then decided not to read the book, I would not have discovered that it was actually based on a true story, and that the novel, like, it was based on a novelization which was based on a true story. Thank you guys so much for continuing along with this video series with me. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more from me, and comment down below your thoughts. And if you want to comment something but you don't know what to, then can you comment a France flag emoji, because that's where most of the part of the book that I read happened. So thank you guys so much. See you later. Bye!